What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages? Welcome back to the AoA show. I'm your host, as always, Ian, along with the boy Isaiah.
Oh, Haikyuu.
And we are here with Haikyuu Season 3, our honest thoughts and a review on it. I mean, it's been a long time coming. By the time this comes out, I mean, we're recording this, and we just finished Season 3 at the time of recording, but you know, it's going to be some time has passed. We'll probably be done with season 4 by the time you're watching this video right now. But we wanted to make sure that before we did start watching season 4, that we had our totally honest thoughts, unpolluted by any future events that could happen, and just focus on season 3 as it is. Also, full disclosure, we recorded our season 2 tier list today, and we're going to hopefully record our season 3 tier list today or sometime this week. So we're Haikyuuing it out today. So luckily for us, this is only 10 episodes and it spans one game. Yeah. So it's not going to be a crazy amount to talk about, but I figure we, go into some of the players that we meet, both new and old alike, and some of the, themes that the season wants to hit on and the game overall. Just let's just talk about it. So anyway, folks, if you like our discussion today, our video, make sure you guys are liking the video, commenting your thoughts down below. What did you think of our review? What did you think of this season? Some of the characters that were introduced in it, etc. Subscribe to the channel, hit that bell, and share with your friends. It's really a good time for everyone involved. All right, so let's get into it. So this takes place. This is the finals. This is going to decide who goes to nationals. We have Shira Torizawa, I think I pronounced that correctly, or Team Eagles, versus the Karasuno Crows. And one of my big things going into the season personally was Shira Torizawa was kind of pegged to be the raid boss after the raid boss, right? It was like Okaiwa and Seijo are the raid boss, but this is like the secret room afterwards, where it's like, these are the guys, it's like when you verse Gary at the end of the Elite Four. It's like, I did it. It's like, you didn't yet, right? Yeah. That was me. And so my big fear with this was that I wanted to make sure that this team got their due, and it was realistic as to how Karasuno could beat them. I say this a lot in our reactions during it, so I'll probably sound like a broken record a bit here, but that was something that I was really wondering, because this team has been pumped up to be the team that was just beating the hell out of every other team that even came close. And I don't know what the exact scores were with Seijo and them, but I'm pretty sure they beat them pretty handily, right? It was like, within a 3 to 5 point margin, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when you go into these deuce games and it's like so back and forth, like being up by 3 points is a genuine advantage, right? Like you're up by quite a bit. If I've learned to think about volleyball, I feel like that's a higher point difference than I initially thought. Yeah. So point being that this team was not to be messed with, right? And my thing was like, okay, how are they going to make it believable that Karasuno is going to beat them on their first shot? Because they have to in order to go to nationals and for us to have a show. Yeah. So I knew how it was going to go down. I just wanted to know how we got there. And I guess long story short, I'm like in between. I'm satisfied with how it went. I don't think this was my favorite season. I think I'd have to give that to season 2 so far, all things considered. But I did like in the beginning how they made it a point to show how the avenue to victory was possible in the beginning of the season. And that was one thing I appreciated, was that Shira Torizawa was really good at what it is they do, and iron sharpens iron. They're going to go at what they do best every day, and that has been enough to just crush everyone so far. Karasuno is this team that can exponentially evolve on the fly. And that was one reason why I wanted to make sure that I didn't get too much in the camp of, well, if Seijo only lost by this many points and it was a tie there, because Karasuno was getting better at every second. So by the time they got to Shira Torizawa, they were actually already better than Seijo, not just for beating them, but I think like now they probably beat them more times than not, right? That's at least my prophecy on that one. So it made it believable there. And also that Karasuno is so good at adapting alternative strategies on the fly. That was my big thing. I was like, okay, they're going to great lengths to explain that there's a difference in philosophies here and how we coach and how these teams are made. And Karasuno might just be the team to be able to edge them out. So I do have to say it did increase the believability a little bit. I guess one of my gripes though was that unfortunately we kind of knew this, but I will say that Wakatoshi kind of seemed like, with a little bit of Tendo sprinkled in there, and some of the other ones kind of seemed like the main, like it was like them versus him, which they went through, again, great lengths to put as symbology with the one eagle versus the 6 crows. And that was the thing. And I think, unfortunately, we got a little bit of limelight on some of these players, but not a whole lot. And it would have been nice to see like their team fleshed out a little bit more, kind of like we had with Seijo, being that this team is so relevant and important. We had so much of a hype build up, but I could see how that might be difficult all in one shot. Those are initial impressions. I could go on, but I want to let you go off and sound off on whatever you thought of this season, just initial impressions before we got into the nitty gritty.
So I also really liked this season. I would also agree that I'd probably give favorite season so far to number 2. I did really like this season, but I do feel I'm kind of in the same boat when it comes to Shiro Torizawa, because like they, like you said, it's Wakatoshi. I feel like it's Wakatoshi and then Shiro Torizawa versus Karasuno, and like he weirdly gets a lot of the limelight as like, oh, he's our best player. He's the star player. If we have him, we'll win no matter what. And the way they frame it, it's not as much like the other team that we faced way back in season 2 with the really tall guy, where it's like, oh, he's just so good, we don't even have to try. But it's more like they all try, but when they get bested or outsmarted or whatever, like Wakatoshi is then there to like pick up any slack and just like hammer home points. But like you said, Karasuno is actually kind of a natural counter to them in a weird way, because Karasuno is always evolving and changing. There's no time for them to like get used to how Karasuno plays, because Karasuno doesn't have their favorite play style. They're always changing depending on what their opponent does. And like you said, it was definitely more of like a battle of philosophies. I mean, you could even see it in the coaches, like, this guy, Coach Tanji, like very clearly has, his beliefs for how people should be playing volleyball or what kinds of players will excel at volleyball versus, Hinata and, Ukai and the way that they, run things and the way that they play on the court. So I guess my only, one of my very few gripes with it was that with all the attention put on Wakatoshi, he kind of came off to me like a pretty generic antagonist. Like I actually, for all the shit we give him, liked Okaiwa as more of an antagonistic force and as more of an because this guy just seemed like a wall. Like he was just this big built dude who, had this, they do go into his origin story, and he had this back, this altercation, whatever you want to call it, with, I believe it was like some of his other relatives and stuff. And he had his dad who was really supportive of him and like trying to play volleyball. But like, I feel like that would have been fine if the focus was centered around the entire team and he was just one of the 6. But he's like you said, even like the metaphors and the imagery, like play it up to like, he is the main focus. This is like Wakatoshi and the Eagles versus so it felt kind of weird to me that like with as much attention on his physical performance and like on him as a threat, because this wasn't even like exclusively season 3, all the way from the beginning of season 2, he gets hyped up as like the guy. Like he's like, if we're going to make it to nationals, that's the wall we got to get on top of. And that wall is fucking high. Yeah. But like, so it just came off as like, not weird necessarily, but just kind of a letdown, I guess, that like with as much focus that was put on his physical ability, his character, at least in my opinion, kind of felt like it was like lacking, or like it was like, oh, okay, that's it. Like we're not, there's not more to that, or he's just that kind of like, it felt like weirdly misplaced. But other than that, I like the rest of the team, and I did like this match.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. That was my other gripe with this, was Wakatoshi in particular, with the season cementing this notion that it is us versus Wakatoshi and gang, for the most part. It seemed like this needs to be the guy that's, I wanted like I think my expectations are too high, and I wanted like the Thanos treatment. You know what I mean? Where it's like, maybe not Thanos himself, but you get my point. Where it's if the culmination of everything in these Avengers movies, going off on a tangent here a little bit, but like, is Thanos, right? Like that's going to be the big bad. Yeah. All of the end credit scenes are like pointing to this dude. He's going for the stones, and then it comes to this giant head at the end, and then we see Thanos, and it's like, wow, this dude's like actually not just out of his mind, but he's like there's a sympathetic villain aspect to him. There's like weirdly noble cause depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
He's a really good villain. It's like you don't know what to think about him. He's got a really interesting backstory, and I would even argue he was like the main character of the Avengers, or at least the first one, right?
Sure.
And so maybe my hopes were too high, but I kind of figured or wanted, because Wakatoshi was that Thanos figure, right? We're looking at him at the end of season 1 when Okai was like, great, Okai would beat us, and now Okai was on his knees in front of him, and he's just standing above him like, you're pathetic, Then the second season, and, just getting, and now getting to this point, it was like, okay, here he is. Like, here comes the Krill, the army. Like, what is he going to do? And he was pretty one-dimensional, in what he was doing, and that was kind of a letdown. I would actually say more of the interesting antagonist in this season, my personal opinion, was Tendo.
Yeah.
I actually thought that Satori Tendo, for being a character that we knew nothing about up until this season, got equal, if not more, backstory than Wakatoshi, and was, to me, a little more interesting. Honestly, he seemed like this genuine Joker-style antagonist to it. And again, this is volleyball, so I don't need the antagonist to be like batshit out of their mind. Like, that's not a requirement per se, but there needs to be just like a little bit of a spark and a liveliness to it, and something to want to overcome besides I'm just better than you at volleyball, where it's like there's an ideology, and maybe you could find that through the coaches, instead of Wakatoshi, but then it kind of pulls away and you're going in all these different directions. So I do agree that I think that was something that I was a little let down about, but maybe my expectations were a little too high. Some of the other players on the team, though, we did get brief things on them. I did like Goshiki as the up-and-coming ace. It was cool to see him get a fire lit under his ass whenever Wakatoshi would say something encouraging or not to him, or the coach would be like, whatever, or they believe in him. I could see in an alternate universe him having his own show, like his own spin-off, because, he's good. It's just that Wakatoshi's better right now, and like, sorry, he's the antagonist, you kind of got to take a back seat, but like, he's got a lot of spirit and a lot of fire. He was really cool, and as I mentioned, like I said, Tendo was just, for me, really the standout player in this. It was really cool to see this mental sparring match that he has with, because if Wakatoshi is like this hammer, this blunt instrument that's just like, you need to find ways to get around this wall or stop it or whatever. Tendo was like the chess match in between that, right? Where it's like, I'm not going to brute force you, but I'm going to get inside your head. I'm going to go with all these wacky, zany thoughts I have, and they're going to work most of the time. And, we needed a lot. It wasn't just, okay, this is Wakatoshi's style. This is how we prepare for it. We're going to do the best we can. Tendo was like a genuine hurdle that they continuously had to climb and go around, because it was constantly changing the entire time. And that was something that I really enjoyed in the season. Plus, he's just crazy. He's just, we call him the Jiddler, which is a combination between the Joker from Batman and the Riddler, because he was just like, he just was like that. It was like all these inside jokes and crap, but he is crazy, the freaking Jiddler, bro. But really interesting stuff. But that was really the up and down, or the players rather. And then lastly, I guess I wanted to talk about the coach, which we could get into with their ideologies clashing. And I didn't expect him to be like as loud and crazy as he was. I thought he was going to be like this old, like I'm not going to move type thing, which he seems to be until he explodes, which I thought was kind of funny. But there was also this plot point where Tanji kind of was, I don't know if I'm going to use the right words here, but like envious maybe in a way of Hinata, or jealous or spiteful. I don't know. Searching at words here, but the point was that he almost didn't, it wasn't just about the game. It was like Hinata specifically, and also, his ideology on the line, his philosophy and how he coaches, because if he loses, it's not only that your philosophy can be beaten, which is abundantly clear by the end of this, right? There's more than one way, but also that the backstory that we got from you, we now realize that, and you realize, which hurts, that maybe there could have been a shot for you to do it if you genuinely tried, instead of giving it all up to whoever your ace was. And we see that exemplified through Hinata, so that was a big thing in an interesting moment. And he doesn't get over it in the end. He tries to make like an offhanded excuse, but you could tell at the end of the season that it definitely shook him down to the core. And whether that changes him if we see this team in future seasons, whatever, if their coaching style changes or if that's just he is who he is, right? I don't know, but I thought that was pretty interesting for this team. I don't know if there was anything with this team in particular that, that stood out to you.
I definitely like the stuff with the coach because I mean that stuff is kind of as classic as anime gets, where it's like, oh, we're having a fight or a duel or whatever, but it's like not just a fight or a duel. It's also like the way we think about the world is on the line here, and it's like if I win, it means that like my philosophy is better than yours. Is always so interesting because it's intriguing to me how just how deep somebody can get entrenched in that way of thinking to the point where like you get just straight tunnel visioned, and it's like, no, if you don't use this philosophy that I've cultivated, like you're not going to be successful. It's just not going to happen. And it's like, again, through seeing somebody, we brought this up in our season 2 tier list that we just did, but Hinata has this ability to not just invoke the best out of his team, but out of the players that he's going against, right? He makes his opponents want to play better so that they can be at their best, so that like they can challenge him. Because Hinata's skill is one thing, and he definitely has skill, but it's his passion and his motivation when he's on the court that like that's what people are like, that number 10, like there's something about him, and that's what it is. And I think when the coach saw that, like you said, because his backstory is so similar, he was like, he saw this kid who is in a position that he was in, and and I think at least at the beginning, he probably felt bad for him because he's like, oh, this kid doesn't even realize that like at some point he's just not gonna be able to cut it with the rest of these players, especially someone like Wakatoshi. But seeing Hinata get over this hill, get over this obstacle and win, made him think that because it's that thing where once his ideology is challenged, whether, no matter how many excuses he comes up with, he's now has to live with the fact that, oh, maybe I was wrong. Maybe if I had shown just as much passion as Hinata's showing, like maybe I could have won. Maybe I could have stayed on this team, my team, a little bit longer. Maybe I could have played better. I could have gone pro. And so it was a little, it was nice to see, but Haikyuu, especially with like the ending of the second season, the third season, do this thing for me. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I just like positive affirmation. But like instead of like saying that and vocalizing it, they'd be like, huh, anyway, that was and it's like, just give it to him, man. These fuckers fought for it, bro. Just give him the good fucking job and walk away. Like when Wakatoshi comes up at the end and he's like, Hinata, I'll beat you next time, and then leaves, it's like, no handshake, my nigga. We just forgot how to be courteous and kind. We just had a match and it was kind of intense and we fucking won.
I feel like you're a little hard on Wakatoshi on that one. The coach definitely was trying to still make excuses, so he doesn't get out of it for me. And then in season 2 at the end, Okai was like, we're 1-1. It's like, hey, whatever, classic Okaiwa, whatever. Long may he live. But Wakatoshi, I thought I gave a little bit more leniency because he refers to them as, he refers to them as Shoyo and Kageyama from the concrete. Yeah. And I was like, okay, that was the homage because he was like this whole infertile soil shit and he's saying a proverb, acting all profound, and Kageyama's like, I'm from the streets, dog. Like, what are you going to do? And like the fact that he referred to him as that from the concrete showed that he gave them at least the respect. Like, he doesn't have to like them because he's like, I don't like Hinata, which that's a whole different thing. Again, he's like, his cookie cutter character thing made it weird that it was like, I hate him. And it's like, okay, like,
like why though? Yeah, because he's like a really good player,
and like he's been nothing but kind. So like I'm confused.
Should hate him.
Which is weird coming from his character because it doesn't seem like the character that would just dislike someone for like not no reason because he gives a reason, but for such a weak reason. Yeah, because it seems like he should be above that, where his character is just like, I don't bother here or there. Like like with Okai or whatever, he's like, whatever, I look past that. Like, you're a good player. Like, I figure you gave the same thing to Hinata, but again, I think they have to set him up as the antagonist. And it's like, you got to kind of want Karasuno to beat him. At least that's the way I do it.
Or
so
it's like the role they give him is that like, he doesn't, if you have no reputation, right? If your name doesn't carry any weight or doesn't mean anything, then why should it mean anything to him? But it's like, again, that feels like from this character who's like, who's like all knowing and is like, there is nothing but strength on the battlefield. That shit shouldn't matter to him. Like your rep or where you're from or like that's where he meets Okaiwa at. He's like, Okaiwa, I know you're good. I've seen you play, but like, you're still lacking or whatever in strength or whatever the fuck. But it's like, that's where, and I will concede that it is nice that he recognizes Hinata and Kageyama with that original title and gives them that. But it is weird that like that is his stipulation, that it's like, oh, if you don't have any rep, like what nerve do you have challenging me? And it's like, dog, what about the 9 fucking matches that I want to get here? Is that not enough? Like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah.
And it's just Hinata throughout the match. There's so many moments that Hinata proved that, like, height aside, dude, I have a right to be here. I have this skill, and like I got these points on my own. And it's like for him to still then be like, now I want to crush. It's like, okay, I get it. That's the rivalry aspect, but like, again, like you were saying, it just felt like this flaw that had to be tacked onto his character, but didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
And so it weirdly kind of felt like it conflicted with his character a lot, because his character felt like somebody that wanted to be very like, all right, all that shit aside, I don't care. If you're strong, then prove it. You're strong. Yeah. I don't care if you played 1 game or 20, whatever. But like, yeah, that part of it was just like, it's like, why is that such a big hang up?
Yeah, because he does that with his teammates too. Like the opposite, like you were saying, where it's like he just, recognizes strength, and he's like, all right, good job. Like, it is what it is. Like, spare me the fluff. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, just do that. So it was odd that then he's like, I need to see the fluff. You know what I mean? Before, otherwise I won't respect it. I was like, this is weird. Give me the fluff. But anyway, enough with Wakatoshi, because we've gone off. I'm disappointed. That's it. You know what I mean? I wanted this to be my favorite character because he was virtually the Terminator incarnate in the thing, and I wanted him to just go like Marine mode and just start fighting everyone. It would have been cool, and turn to a shonen, but we didn't get that, and that's okay. We can't win them all. I want $1 million, but I don't have it yet. But anyway, moving on here. I guess let's move on to Karasuno, and I guess this is fine. The way we're going about it here, because that's really it. It's really just highlighting the individual players throughout it, and then we can talk about the game as a whole. But I'm just gonna out and say it. This is Suki's season, 100% for Karasuno. 100%. This is gonna be released way later, but again, we just recorded the season 2 tier list, and we put Suki in B, I think. Spoiler alert. If you haven't seen that already, definitely go and watch it. But in our first tier list for season 1, we had him in D. And so we even said, we're like, okay, he's going to be exponentially going up, because he has this moment in season 2 where his whole philosophy on life is challenged, and with pretty strong arguments. And he kind of starts to bend a bit. He's still kind of a smart ass, and he does his thing. Sometimes, but he's getting there. But then in this season was like not a total turnaround, because he's still Suki, right? I'm not expecting his whole character to just change, be what I want you to be. You know what I mean? I'm not that naive, but he does genuinely show this great love for the game. And not only that, we get to see how good he is as a player, because he's really freaking good. And so analytical, he's able to put this whole chessboard together and see 5 moves ahead and plan things. I love the scene where he's getting his fingers wrapped, and he's even thinking of how he's going to go into the next, sequence of turns, as it were. And I love how he gets under Tendo's skin, because Tendo, being this Joker style dude, is like, chaos, blah, 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 and he's just like, no, I got it figured out. Yeah. And Tendo's like, well, that's no fun. Yeah. Suki's like, I'm not here to have fun. I'm here to crush you. You know what I mean? That's it. So it was really cool to see his character and just how he puts a stop to Wakatoshi. There are just so many standout moments for him in this season. I'm sure you would agree, but I mean, I really thought that he was the standout character in Karasuno season.
Yeah, 100%. Suki definitely went leagues up in my mind, because the penultimate moment, right, of watching his slow character development here is that you get things like the echoing to why he thinks the way he thinks, which was back in season 2, episode 8, and what it is, why he views these his teammates and just the sport the way he does, and because of all the stuff that he went through with his brother. But then you see the conversation he has with Bokuto and Tetsuo, and it's like, dude, you don't understand. Once you have that moment, you're going to understand why we throw caution to the wind and we put so much emphasis on today, this moment right now. And we get to see him have that moment. When he blocks Wakatoshi's, spike, and he has that moment where he just screams, and you see that moment, and it's all of it, all of those episodes, all that build up and all that character reaffirms that that's it. That's the moment that they were talking about. And Suki understands now. He understands why Hinata is running fucking laps on this court, bro, and spiking and after spike, and why Kageyama, why all these people put as much effort and emphasis on this high school sport that they play, because it matters to them, because that moment is priceless. You don't get that just from showing up and spiking a couple. You get that from trying, you get that from giving a damn, and you get that from wanting to block Wakatoshi's spike and then doing it. And it was just such a powerful moment for him. Oh my God. It was so good.
Preach,
So good.
man.
And also, my boy Noya, the journey he goes through in this match
That was awesome.
from almost being crippled by Wakatoshi's first spike to eventually consistently being able to receive them is just...
Oh, that was awesome. He's unbreakable.
Yeah.
He's literally, he needs to be in his own series called Unbreakable. Like that's Nishinoya. Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. It was so awesome to see that. And, you know, even though he couldn't get all of them even in the end, like the fact that he was hammering at it and he would not let that deter him. He was like, whoa, respect. But here I am, like fire another one at me, was just awesome to see. Especially the ones that he straight up received were just really, really sweet. And like the teamwork coming together with that was just fantastic. The way that they had gamed this before going into it, you know, which was a huge advantage for them being I feel like sometimes being the underdog when you're close, when you're not that much of an underdog, can in a way work to your advantage in the sense that you're going to go above and beyond to find ways to outmaneuver the person that's above you, whereas the person that's already on the top of the mountain is going to keep sharpening, doing what they're doing, but that might not be enough in this particular scenario, but they're not going to know that because they've never gone up against you yet, right? Yeah. So they're just going to do what they do. But you have all this info of like, okay, this is what Wakatoshi's going to do every time. He's left-handed. He's going to go on this side of the court. You know, he's going to spike it this way. We're going to set up the wall, etc. Like, you know, Shiro Torizawa could have looked at footage from them, but like Karasuno's that kind of team that has been just like all over the place for starters. Exactly. They don't really have like a pin down thing. And they quite frankly sucked. You know what I mean? Like at the beginning of season 1, 2, whatever, like they've been exponentially growing. So it's like they're constantly changing and evolving. It's hard to like get a read on that. So it was like almost an advantage. And it was really cool to see all of that put to fruition. Obviously Nishinoya was one of the backbones, quite literally, of those strategies. It really came down to him, and we were saying this in our season 2 tier list, but Nishinoya is like this back anchor to the team, and he really needed to be right there, and obviously he didn't disappoint. It was really awesome to see. I mean, it was some cool shit. Also Daichi too on not a smaller scale. I don't want to like undermine or undercut him, but for sure, you know, understood and put the team where they needed to be in those moments and really took that leadership role because this was a big deal, you know, and their morale. But Kojukai, I wanted to talk about here. So first of all, was a fantastic character in this season. Really just stuck it out there. And then, you know, that part where he said, I believe, is it this season? I'm going to sound really stupid, where it's like volleyball, you look up.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I'm getting my seasons confused because we're talking about all of them in one clip. But yeah, where he's like, volleyball is not a sport where you look down, like get your head up. Like that moment alone was just awesome for me. I just absolutely love that when it was really getting into the thorns of it, the thick and the thistle there. It was just awesome to see that. And it was also brought to my attention by Isaiah, who one of our fans had brought it up to us, that apparently after episode 8, when it was at that line, is it literally
that's the last? Well, no, that's the last line he ever recorded.
Yeah, it's the last line he records there, and then unfortunately he passed. And which was crazy because I remember watching it and not saying anything during the reaction because I was like, I'm just going to sound stupid. And I couldn't really tell because, let's be honest, since it's Japanese, I speak English. Like, I can't, it's very hard to tell the slight nuances sometimes if they sound similar. And I was like, is his voice like slightly different? I can't tell. It wasn't enough for me to notice, really notice apparently. But yeah, unfortunately he passed. And I just wanted to, you know, throw that out there as something where it's, you know, it's very sad. And I'm abundantly grateful for the work that he put in, and, you know, in all the roles that he had, and, you know, in this particular scenario, Ukai as a character, because I thought he really killed it. And, you know, for that to be the last line that he recorded was, you know, very fitting and inspiring, you know, all things considered. But yeah, just Ukai was great this season, just in general as well, with some of those lines that he had. And he really pulled out the stops as a coach this time, especially being that these ideologies were and these philosophies of coaching were on the line.
Look at that. So the name of the voice actor is Kanzunari Tanaka. His name is Tanaka. That's so crazy.
What? Tanaka?
Oh, that's so nuts.
That's crazy.
Damn.
But anyway, yeah, he really pulled out the stops there, and it was really cool to see him really come to his own because this is someone who got roped into coaching in season 1, like midway through, and it's kind of been just figuring out as you go along, because it's one thing to play in the sport and sure, the rules and all that kind of stuff, but it's another to coach, right? We always give credit to Daichi for being the captain, what the captains do, but the coaches, even on a different level, really have to look at the game differently and look at their players differently. And when he is able to read Yama, when Yama's like standing there and he's like, I got it. Like, we're going to put you out, like those moments. It was really cool. And to see it all really come together here, he was a huge integral part, in their win and going to nationals here. And I can't wait to see how he gets even better as a coach when they're in nationals. And I hope they give him a lot of credit and a lot of screen time as well. But it was really cool to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Kojukai too, and I love that like he's because like you were saying, it's one thing to be on the court, it's another to be like watching and to be instructing what's happening on the court. But it's like Daichi, even as like the captain who's running the court, can sort of be when things are happening, he can sort of like actively be one of the people that's like adjusting and making changes to fix the situation. Where it's like Ukai can train and instruct these guys all he wants, but at the end of the day, he has to leave his trust in them, that he has given them the correct knowledge and tools, and trust them that they can put this thing together and win. I mean, there's some of my most memorable moments of Kojukai are moments when like, we're in the third set, we're going point for point here. It's like the tail end of the game, and he's just sitting there and he's talking to Takeda, and he's like, I've done everything I can. Like, we just have to, I'm just hoping that like whatever call they make, I trust that it's the right one. And it's like, there's nothing left to do. All the cards are on the table. And it's like, that is your job as a coach. And I feel like if you've done that, if you've done coaching well, if you've coached a team well, you should feel good about that. You should feel good. You should feel confident in being able to trust your team, because you've done everything you can in terms of teaching them how to utilize all the tricks and tools that they have. And Coach Ukai, he does it. He absolutely does it, and he does it with, like you said, sort of out of nowhere, because he's not, this like he's not like his grandpa. He's not this all-star coach who's come from like 3 different schools, and he's he knows how to train kids in volleyball in his sleep. He smoked cigarettes outside of a grocery store before this, right? Like he had no training, but it's like he knows the game. He loves the game. He's, again, like most people, connects and identifies with how passionate these kids are about the game. And that's, sometimes that's enough. And it was really cool to see.
Pay Coach Ukai. Yeah. Pay the man. Yeah. If they're not paying him by the end of season 4, especially if they win fucking nationals on his first year coming in, that man earned a salary, okay? And I'm not taking no for an answer. Facts. I will go petition at that damn school. I will put signs up. I will be pissed off. Oh, pay this man.
Speaking of the school, we have been preaching from the gate, from season 1. We're like, wow, all these other schools are coming out in fucking spades when their team is playing. And this is like not even the semifinals. But where's Karasuno's team? I don't see them. Dude, that we experienced in that reaction when we saw that the entire Karasuno school finally fucking rolled up, and that, of course, your girl Tanaka's sister Seiko was leading the charge here with the neighborhood watch. It was just so that's the thing I will say. As much as, I know in the beginning we were saying how Shiratorizawa, like, their team was good, and I was kind of like disappointed by Wakatoshi specifically because of the weird emphasis on him. I will say the atmosphere of the game and like the intensity that that these 10 episodes span out, I definitely got like, this is finals. This is a big fucking deal. Everybody is on like their wits end in terms of like, their how prepared they are, and you just, every point felt like that much heavier and with that much more weight, because like both schools are all here, they're fucking going out cheering, that it was being televised, like it was played up really well, and I definitely felt like that intensity. And so when the ending, I remember I literally, when we finished the finale, I literally screenshotted like my favorite 20 images and just posted them in a Discord, and I'm like, this is just how I feel. And it was like all pictures of like everybody crying. It was like the school were crying, Tanaka and them were crying, Ukai's crying, this match, like as a whole, was such a good match. It was just so fulfilling. All the moments, every moment of like, oh shit, he can do this, oh shit, he got this point this way, felt so, realistic and earned. And I just felt like this wasn't, Haikyuu does this. This is, the fact that it did this again isn't really a surprise, but it's just the scale it did it on. Because again, I knew that Karasuno had to win. I mean, they're the protagonist team. We have to win nationals here, or to win the final to get to nationals. But the way they won, like that whole match, I'm I'm thinking like, how are they going to win? Because I'm like, I know they're, on some level, I know they're going to win and I know they can win. I know what Karasuno's capable of. But like every time I see either Wakatoshi or someone else from Shiratorizawa like scoring a point this way or Tendo getting under somebody's skin, I'm like, I started to get that much more backed into a corner. But like I say in all the reactions, like Karasuno is at their best when they're backed into a corner. When you've pushed them to what you think is their absolute limit, they adapt and overcome. And it was just, this match was so rewarding.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well said. It was really awesome to see the school there and the neighborhood watch with their headbands and the whole nine. And it was really inspiring because we had been going off about how all these other teams have these cool chants. And I'm not going to lie, I don't want to knock them because they came out, but we could have done a little better on the cheering during the game.
Sure.
We need to get our shit together a little, but then we pulled it out at the end. We had the whole thing going, and it was really awesome to see. All jokes aside, it was really cool. And like you said, because that was the last point I wanted to make here. Last thing I wanted to talk about was the game itself, right? Because that is the season, is this game. Yeah. Beyond just the characters individually, it's somebody's got to win, right? 5 sets. It's going to be a brutal, grueling match, and it did genuinely feel like finals. It felt like this is the game. We're putting it all on the line here. They certainly didn't disappoint there. I love the intricacy within the plays in it. Highlighting some of the characters. Like we said, we went into Suki a little bit and some of his know-how. Tendo on the opposing side. Even Wakatoshi, when we got his backstory and then we learned the significance of being left-handed in volleyball, was interesting, and how he, sometimes would power through, but then at one point switched it up. And then, again, we got Goshiki and some of the things there. A lot of highlights there, but it was really cool overall to see the teams come together, especially Karasuno, and these philosophies put on the line, and them to really just have this synergy together. I think Kojukai says something along the lines of, Shiratorizawa is addition. They're like simple addition. We're multiplication, and their numbers are big, but we have this multiplying synergy, which is really just cool, and satisfying to see it all put together. Because it's one thing to have, one dude to bash through everything, right? Where it's like you're so overwhelming in strength, it's like, sure, we're winning, but it's even cooler to me to see this synergistic thing to come together and be like, oh, the cogs are turning, right? As Takeda would say. Yeah. So it was really awesome. I genuinely enjoyed the game, and I think that was one of the main things they were going for, and I think they nailed that. So, I'm pretty excited, all things considered, for this to go on. I'm curious to know, because Wakatoshi, that was his last year. Yeah. And I guess his last game. But I'm going to assume if we ever go to pro level, he's going to be pro. Yeah, we're going to see him there, because it was virtually him versus the other team with a little bit of Tendo sprinkled in there. So, I'm not too worried about him and his prospects. I think he's fine. He's got people scouting him for numerous colleges or wherever, however that works, pro leagues. But all things in all, sweet season, really cool stuff, great game, cool characters, Karasuno, just the boys, take a bullet for them any day of the week. Watch out for the Jiddler, because
if you see a man with red hair in your neighborhood, call a professional. Yeah. Because you will get jiddled.
The cops. Or Batman.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Or Suki.
Or Suki. Yeah. Because genuinely terrifying. We said, I just got to go off on this for a second. We said it multiple times. We're like, this guy's genuinely scaring me. Yeah. His eyes were the entire time. His backstory was even he's I kill frogs. You know what I mean? Not literally. People are going to be like, dude, relax. I'm kidding. But he was just a strange ranger. But
he would make it a point, even in his backstory, to be like, I genuinely would only get excited about this game when I was messing with other people. Yeah. And I'm like, but that's what serial killers start out saying, bro. Then it's oh, I actually got happy hurting animals. Then I started hurting people. And it's it was just a very slippery slope. And I'm I've watched one too many anime to know that you, whatever you do, make sure there's adults around at all times. Yeah. I don't know what you're doing.
And the way he played off Wakatoshi, where he'd be this weird pestering thing, where it was literally the Joker Batman dynamic. Literally, Wakatoshi was just this stoic, hyper disciplined dude that was just like, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, and Tendo was like almost trying to goad him into being like, what are you gonna do, Batman? Are you gonna kill him with the volleyball? And he's like, I will play the game. You know, it was like this weird thing. I'm like, dude, Tendo may have been the actual antagonist, and we were just looking too hard into Wakatoshi.
Yeah.
Like the OP, everything, they're there to mislead you.
100%.
That's how they sneak up on you, because the
100%.
Joker always does that, where you think it's the crime boss, it's the syndicate, it's whatever, and then all of a sudden the Joker comes in and is like, actually, I was running the show the entire time, and that's what I genuinely think with Tendo.
Dude, 100%.
You know,
100%.
it was crazy, but anyway, all jokes aside, enjoyed the season. That is our review. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it too. If you did, make sure you guys are smashing like, commenting your thoughts down below. What did you think of our review this season in particular? Some of the characters, some of our hot takes, our opinions, etc. Share this video as well with your friends, with your family, with your dog, your neighbor, anyone. Share it so more people can watch our review on Haikyuu and just all things Haikyuu and anime related, because the more the merrier. Subscribe to the channel if you made it this far and you're not subscribed yet. Shame on you. But if you are and you don't have that bell ticked yet, definitely want to tick that bell. It takes 2 seconds and you'll be notified anytime we drop a new video on the channel. Also, hit us up in the description down below where you can find all the necessary links, namely the AoA Reacts channel, our secondary reaction channel, where you can catch all of our Haikyuu live reactions. You can also catch us on Discord with the link down there as well if you want to talk some more anime, some more Haikyuu, get in touch with us personally, and it's the best way to really get updates on when new videos drop on either of the channels, or there are new announcements going down, competitions, fun get-togethers, all things like that. Definitely don't want to miss it. Hit us up on Patreon as well. Link is there so you can get exclusive benefits to the show while also supporting us. So it's really a win-win, namely early access to our Haikyuu live reactions, among many others that we do in a more unedited, unfiltered style format. So you definitely want to take advantage of that. You can only do that on our Patreon account, so definitely go check it out. But until next time, folks, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you on the flip. Peace. Peace.
Apostles of anime, apostles of anime. Press play, don't disobey. Then you get judged by